Welcome to the series Person of Interest, brought to you by the Australian Investigation Agency, fighting for truth, accountability and justice. My name is John Armfield. Welcome to episode 7, The Commanding Officer Who Closed the Door. Part 1 of a 3-part special due to the volume of evidence. In episode 6, we exposed how a single document, a false timeline, became the foundation for character assassination, retaliation, and institutional protection. You saw how a false timeline was created to rewrite history. A document that never should have existed and never should have been believed. But in episode 7, we move up the chain of command to the commanding officer who saw everything, ignored warnings, withheld evidence, and made decisions that ultimately ended my 20-year Navy career. This is the story of Commander Fiona Southwood and how the system protected itself by sacrificing a sailor who lived by the values of honour, honesty, courage, integrity and loyalty. Section 1. Who is Commander Fiona Southwood? Commander Fiona Southwood was the commanding officer of HMAS Moreton during the most critical period of my life. She held authority for my welfare, my complaints, my medical support, my access to justice, the accuracy of information up the chain, and my career. And uniquely, Southwood is also a director of RSL Queensland, an organisation that publicly champions care for veterans, leadership and accountability. Yet, when confronted with a sailor in crisis, Southwood's actions reflected none of those values. Section 2. The actual role of a commanding officer. A Navy commanding officer has 3 core duties: to ensure the welfare, to ensure procedural fairness, and to ensure accurate reporting up the chain of command. In my case, Southwood failed on all 3. Section 3. The motive emerges. Let's start with motive. By September 2021, I had uncovered major breaches in how my brother's suicide was handled. I found evidence hidden for 10 years. I questioned decisions made by the officers. I requested accountability, and I raised privacy breaches. I challenged Defence Force recruiting's conduct, and I accused Defence of maladministration. My 6 questions rattled Defence. They exposed breaches of duty of care, failures of policy, inconsistent statements, potential negligence, all a Royal Commission level problem. My pursuit of truth wasn't a risk to national security. It was a risk to reputations, and that made me inconvenient for the organisation. Section 4. Opportunity. My transfer to the Personnel Support Unit. By the time I arrived at the Personnel Support Unit, HMAS Moreton, medically impacted by receiving my brother's suicide report alone and in a car park, I was vulnerable. This created the opportunity. Southwood now controlled my welfare, my career, my access to information, my complaints, and my medical pathway. Southwood controlled the narrative, and instead of protecting me, she protected Defence. Section 5. Method. How Southwood shaped the record. This is how the method unfolded. Example 1. The triggered at the female recruiting event claim. Southwood told senior officers, 14, that, on reflection, The supervisor at Defence Force Recruiting believes the female recruiting event in March 2021 triggered John, and they have been managing him since March. This is false. This is a lie. I did not attend the event. It was all female. No welfare records exist. No medical interventions occur. I was performing strongly. My workplace capacity report describes me as outstanding. But this false narrative served a purpose. It created a retrospective justification of my medical deterioration, one that blamed me for the problems, not the system. Example 2, withholding evidence from Captain Ian Andrews. When I travelled to Canberra in 2022 and met Captain Ian Andrews, she was shocked to discover she had only been given negative commentary and evidence about me. She had not been provided the statements supporting me. She had not been provided evidence contradicting Mill's timeline. She had not been shown the welfare failures. She had not been shown the freedom of information contradictions. Southwood controlled the flow of information. The evidence that supported me, she withheld. Example 3. Reporting me to Joint Military Police Unit for the privacy breach I reported. I reported a data breach at the direction of a Defence Counsel Services lawyer, an ADF lawyer. 10 days later, the files were still accessible to the entire ADF. But instead of investigating who failed to secure the data, Southwood referred me to the Joint Military Police Unit. This flipped accountability upside down.
So to give the doctor the background in regards to that, it was basically he accessed stuff in Objective which should have been locked down, and it wasn't, so he raised his concerns. It was investigated, there was a fact-finding done into it, and as a result he then gets a telephone call from JMPU asking him to come in for an interview. Yep. And you can read between the lines that it was actually him being investigated for accessing the Objective files without authority when he actually had the authority. Because
Example 4, the fact find. Southwood initiated a fact find into my complaints and without notifying me when the matter was referred to Joint Military Police Unit.
Just, John, I think you believe that the investigation in regards to the timeline created by DFR was never properly really investigated anyway, because the person who raised the complaint, sitting right there, never got interviewed. I never got approached.
I never got interviewed, and none of the senior enlisted got interviewed.
Southwood did not protect my welfare. She did not protect procedural fairness. She protected defence from exposure. Example 5, the day the system collapsed. 23rd of November 2022. I received my MEC employment classification of J52, ending my career. My failed Defence Force recruiting maladministration response, authored by Freeman, who was not qualified, and my IGADF matter being minimised. That same day, Captain Ian Andrews emailed Commodore Van Stralen, stating, essentially, he is seeking information on his brother's death, which has culminated in him being given a MEC J52 decision. My pursuit of justice, the same truth Andrews admitted should have been provided years earlier, became the justification for ending my career. Yet the MEC Review Board determination warned explicitly, consider the potential impact this decision may have on John's well-being. Ensure supports are in place. Southwood did the opposite. She drops 3 bombs on the same day. You described that as being shattering. It was also systemic negligence. Section 6, impact. A career ended by the system. I was a 20-year sailor, a clearance diver, 5 operational deployments, exceptional reporting, ducks of the clearance diving advanced course, commended for leadership, consistently high performing. Yet, after I raised concerns supported by the evidence, defence labelled me unsuitable, unstable, triggered, poorly coping, difficult. None of these were ever supported, but these were convenient, and they allowed the system to remove the problem. Me, but not to solve it. Section 7, the cover-up. Freedom of information, misconduct, redactions, and information control. My freedom of information revealed something alarming. The first version was heavily redacted. The review version exposed commentary that was untrue. The exemptions used, Section 47 Foxtrot, privacy, and Section 47 Echo Charlie, agency operations, were misapplied. These redactions hid false statements, concealed misconduct, protected senior officers, and denied me procedural fairness. A Navy commander anonymously warned me, if defence repeats improper redactions at review, it goes straight to the Office of Australian Information Commissioner, OAIC. They know this, John. This shows knowledge of wrongdoing. This is not transparency. This is control. This is not privacy protection. This is narrative protection. This is not error. This is concealment. Section 8. Systemic failure. Every level broke. The system failed me at every level. Defence Force recruiting, HMAS Moreton, freedom of information, which I will call out as corrupted, Inspector General ADF, that is still ongoing and I can't fully go into that at the moment, the MECRB Review Board, ministerial correspondence from Deputy Chief of Navy to MECRB, data security, welfare systems, procedural fairness. Once the organisation felt threatened, the mechanism activated. They had motive, opportunity, method, impact, cover-up, systemic failure, and causation. The causation was my injury, my J52 medical discharge was not random. They were foreseeable consequence of a system trying to protect itself from scrutiny. Captain Andrews' own words confirm it. His pursuit of his brother's case has culminated in him being given a MEC J52 determination. This is the closest thing to an admission you will ever see in writing. Section 9, the personal cost. I've asked myself the same question the public now asks. Why did a respected Navy clearance diver with outstanding reporting, a spotless record, never charged, never infringed, and 2 decades of service lose my career for upholding the values the Navy claims to live by? I lived those values. I held the line. I loved my job. And for that, I was removed. This isn't just a story about one commanding officer failing a sailor. It's a window into how institutions protect themselves, even when it destroys the very people who serve them with honour. In episode 8, we continue the Southwood files because the public deserves to see what happened next. The freedom of information battles, the psychological cost, the ministerial warnings, and the moment the Navy's own legal and medical experts admitted that what the system refused to say. I will dismantle the remaining mechanisms and expose how far the system was willing to go to avoid accountability. This is not the end of the story. It is only part 1. But when you see the evidence I provide, that defence was willing to corrupt their own freedom of information, and that me as a sailor was unaware of how the process worked, and it was only because of the good officers, those that held the line, those that believed in serving and leading us. And when I did go through freedom of information review, the same organisation, the same people, they knew then that if they didn't do the morally and legally correct thing, they could be legally held responsible through the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. Is that not corruption? Thank you. Thank you, Australia. Thank you for your support.